Hi, this is Bill Hartzer, and this is the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast for Thursday, April 7th, 2022. Lots of things going on this week. Let's get to kind of the updated news and everything that I would like to get mentioned. So first thing, there's a lots of, I would say, Google search ranking volatility going on right now. So in this particular case, it's typical behavior. You'll check a certain ranking for a keyword and you'll see you're in 5th position or 3rd position, and you'll go back a couple hours later and it will be in 8th or 9th or on the 2nd page. So, and then you'll check it again and it'll be in 2nd position, and it'll go back and forth and so forth. So that's typical behavior. When we see that, Google actually is doing some updates and so forth. So that's something that we want to keep in mind. Right now, there's chatter about Google search ranking volatility going on, meaning that you'll be ranking in one position, and you go down in another position, back and forth and so forth. Not a big deal. I would give it some more time, and then eventually it should settle down. So the Google search removal tool has had several different iterations over the years in different locations, different URLs, different types. They've moved the Google search removal tool into Google Search Console, I would say a while back. It's been at least a year or two. And right now it's actually very fast. So if you do need content, for example, if you your web developer made a mistake and you got pages indexed that should not be indexed, maybe there are pages that are like a staging version of the site or so forth that shouldn't be indexed. That is, you can get those removed in very fast right now in about 2 hours. So regarding content, Google says it's actually okay to outsource content. As long as it is quality content, and it's okay to hire writers. It's okay to write, to hire a company to create content and write content for you. That's not a problem, as long as it is quality content. We can get through and we could talk, for hours related to, what is quality content and so forth. I'm not going to get into that right now, but they have actually said officially this week that AI written content, meaning that artificial intelligence has written your content, that's actually against Google's guidelines. And I suspect that there is a good potential that a bunch of sites would get manual penalties, manual actions for AI written content. John Mueller from Google has actually said this, very recently, that content written by AI falls under the category of auto-generated content, which could lead to a manual penalty. So keep in mind that, that there are certain AI that Google right now cannot determine whether it's an AI written content. I think it's GTP3 that is content is so good, essentially, it's AI written that Google cannot determine whether a person wrote it or whether AI wrote it. But you need to kind of keep up with that, and just be aware that if you are going to write a majority of your content by AI, there's a potential for getting a penalty. So that said, there are situations where I do believe that it is okay and would be helpful to use AI to write content. Let's talk about, let's say you have thousands of products and you need product descriptions, or you need meta description tags written, for those thousands of pages. It would be appropriate if it's short, if it's short content, it would be appropriate to have an AI write that. And then obviously I would review it and check it. But again, actually sitting down and writing thousands of product descriptions may not be physically possible based on your budget. and you may not want to outsource it. So AI, if there's a potential, that again, that is a good, that's a good acceptable use of AI to write meta description tags, maybe product descriptions, and so forth. So I haven't been asked, let's change gears a little bit. I have been asked over and over again about good sources and how do I keep up to date with, anything in SEO, digital marketing, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go through a couple of the sites that I prefer and the sources of good SEO and digital marketing content. Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, Search Engine Roundtable. Journal Land and Roundtable. Those are three that are pretty good. The Big SEO subreddit. If you do go on Reddit, the Big SEO subreddit is actually good because it is run by some very trustworthy people in the SEO world. So Big SEO on Reddit. Webmaster World, of course, has been my go-to place for years and years and years, probably over 20 years now, and so forth. So webmasterworld.com, any of the PubCon sites or PubCon conferences are great to go to. There is a Facebook group called SEO Signals Lab, and you can keep up with the information that things are going on. There's a lot of people in there, a lot of SEOs in there, so you can get questions and get questions answered. So if you go out there and ask any questions, you will get answers. Whether or not they're the right answers, you need to determine that yourself. But like I said, SEO Signals Lab. So on Facebook, and there's Facebook groups that are specific to certain tools. So if there are certain SEO tools that you use on a regular basis, I would definitely, or just any digital marketing tools that you use on a regular basis, look and see if there's a Facebook group, because you can actually ask questions there, and that can be a good source. I'm not going to specifically go and talk about certain, there are certain tools that I use that on a regular basis that they have Facebook groups that are very good. So speaking of tools, certain tool providers, they ask the questions, and even if it's a question that you probably know the answer to, but you probably will help somebody else by asking that question and getting other people to answer it. So specifically for certain tools, go to Twitter and ask specifically that tool, whether it's Screaming Frog, Sightbulb, Majestic, Ahrefs, ask them on Twitter. You don't have to necessarily answer, include the site in particular, but ask that publicly and you will get an answer. And primarily, in most cases, a very quick answer from those tool providers from their social media teams. Also, join Twitter communities. If you have the potential, if you have that option or given that option, go ahead and join the Twitter community for that particular topic. There are SEO communities, domain name communities, marketing. There's a marketing Twitter area as well. Ask questions, responses, respond and so forth, and engage in there. So moving on, some other sites. So some of the things that I actually do on a regular basis, I have some clients who are, I am helping them with their online reputation management and their overall their online reputation. And so these sites and these these options and these things that I'm going to mention here are great for not only just moving a negative piece of content down in the results, but what I would say is let's think about your personal reputation. So if you do a search for your name, what shows up? And you want to have a good control over that now before there's potentially an issue later on. And so there are certain sites that tend to rank well. And especially if you are kind of regularly community, you're regularly adding content and you're part of those communities and so forth, it would be helpful. So, sites, these are essentially sites that are going to rank well. And like I said, for pushing, great for pushing down content that's negative about you. However, like I said, at the same time is you should be going out and having and creating these pages, these profiles. So Twitter is very well up there. It's going to rank well if you fill it out, get some followers, and regularly make some posts and so forth. It's going to rank well fairly quickly. Instagram, LinkedIn, mentioning Instagram, those can rank well, Instagram profiles. However, LinkedIn, filling out the whole profile, LinkedIn company page, but also especially for a personal, your personal name. Fill out like I said, fill out your profile, do some articles if you can. If you've written an article on, let's say, on another site, and you've posted, say, on your personal website, then you can copy that article or the majority of it and put it on LinkedIn as well as an article. So another important thing, domain name. Your domain name, if you can get your personal name, create your site. Obviously, a WordPress site, I do recommend at least 5 pages, ideally. Home page, about page, maybe a services page if you do provide any services, maybe a separate resume page, photo gallery if you are, if that's in the cards for you, if that's something you do, if you're in fashion or something, maybe embed some videos, have a separate video page. So your domain name is very key also. That's going to rank fairly well. You want to use the option to add schema markup code on your personal site. And then in there, you essentially, depending on the type you're using, personal schema, organization schema, et cetera, you want to essentially link that back, or those mentions in your schema markup code, link that back with the same as, link it back to your Twitter, to your Instagram profile, to your LinkedIn, and so forth, and make those connections, because that's going to help the search engines, especially rank your page, understand your page, and so forth. So FAQ pages. So FAQ pages are interesting especially for a person. So what you're wanting to do is you want to control as much screen real estate for your particular search. So for example, let's say Bill Hartzer as a name. Well, if you were able to create FAQ pages, or at least one FAQ page on your site, and in the questions, use your name. So does Bill Hartzer provide SEO services? Is Bill Hartzer such and such, and so forth. Make those questions and answers, because those FAQ pages and FAQs may cause Google to actually show the results, and some people also ask questions. And so that's going to be interesting, because that's going to actually, potentially create the first people also ask, which is going to take up more screen real estate for that name or your company. So FAQ pages are pretty important, especially if you need to mark those up with schema markup code. So Crunchbase is actually going to rank very well, whether it's for a company name, a personal name, etc. So what I normally do is I create a profile. You don't have to create a paid profile listing. You just have to create a company, a profile. And then you obviously you've got to go in and you'll get the email and you have to click on the link to verify and so forth. Now, what you want to do is with Crunchbase, create a company listing. And then under that list, you can list employees. And so that will create also a personal page for that person as well. So that's how you do that. So if it is, if you're going after your own, so what you do is you would create Bill Hartzer Consulting, if that's your name, and then that would be the company listing. Fill that out as much as you can. And then under that, have Bill Hartzer as the CEO or so forth. And so you get actually the personal listing page, but you also get the company listing page. Those actually both can end up ranking well. Pinterest profile and doing some pins, spending 20 minutes or so setting that up, doing some pins, that's going to rank. So a Facebook page, Facebook fan page. You may also want to open up the Facebook profile to the public so they can get those posts can get indexed. That's up to you. But I would definitely create a Facebook fan page or a company page. So on that particular Facebook page, you want to actually schedule events. So for example, my podcast that is done at 1:30 Mountain Time every Thursday, which you're listening to now on Facebook Live, and it's been recorded. What you want to do is you want to actually go in and schedule events, because those scheduled events, especially if they end up being Facebook Lives, those will actually rank well in the search results for the company name or the personal name as well. So what will happen is and because it's this Facebook page scheduled event, Facebook actually will give you will actually mark it up with certain schema markup code that actually ends up being part of the knowledge graph. And so you get a whole double, not only does it rank, but actually it can contribute to your knowledge graph listing as well. So if you do any videos, if you ever, or you're in a video, or you have a regular videos that you do for your company, start a podcast. Absolutely start a podcast. Take the audio of those videos, and and put those as episodes in the podcast. So when I do a Facebook Live here, it's recorded also as a Zoom video, and then that's on YouTube. But I take the audio of that particular video, that is saved as audio, and that becomes the episode that's then out on all the channels. So it's going to be on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. It's also going to be on iHeartRadio, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. So I use Spreaker to actually do that distribution. So you upload the audio file, and then you'll have an episode. YouTube channel, YouTube videos, that's obviously those are going to rank, and especially if you can get embeds of those as well. I mentioned start a podcast, Vimeo videos, and a Vimeo profile. Those can actually do fairly well as well. So you can actually create a Reddit subreddit. I mentioned Reddit before, but if you actually go into Reddit and create a subreddit, you could create one for your company name, or it could be, for a person. You could create a subreddit, and then you'll want to do posts. So you'll need to do posts kind of on a regular basis to kind of keep it up. If you do it, essentially a bunch, 5 or 10 posts, 10 posts or so on that subreddit initially, then you can actually get that subreddit to rank as well in search results. So for celebrities, I work with celebrities on a regular basis. I have a few that I'm working with right now. It's a little bit different. So all of the above, all of those, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, domain name, their personal site, FAQ pages with the name, Crunchbase, Facebook, podcast, YouTube channel, video, Vimeo, etc. Those actually are going to be, going to obviously be things you want to do and have control over. If there is a knowledge panel already for your name, then you need to claim that. You need to essentially create a Google account. Okay, that Google account could be with a Gmail account, or it could actually be you can create a Google account if you have a separate email address. Like, I use bill@billhartzer.com. I actually have a Google account under that. Then I can use that Google account to claim the knowledge graph or knowledge panel entry. That's important to claim that you have control over the content, or you can actually request changes. So also, there's going to be probably a Wikipedia page about you. So you're going to want to, have control over that. If at least you're going to want to make sure the content there is accurate in there. I wouldn't necessarily go and edit your own Wikipedia page. There's other ways to get, Wikipedia editors to kind of notice that a change needs to be made. There's other ways, to do that. But like I said, be aware of the Wikipedia page, follow the changes on there. And IMDb, so you may have an IMDb Internet Movie Database page. That actually is going to be pretty powerful as well. That when you do a search for the celebrity name or the name, that IMDb page may show up as well in the results very prominently. Claiming that page and claiming your profile there, and adding any content, which would be in the form of credits on a regular basis, keeping up with that. Another option is actually to write a book and become essentially an author. Not necessarily, I'm not going to go into what kind of book or anything like that, but if you become an author, your book will get an ISBN number, and you essentially will get to be part of the knowledge graph, and that is important as well. So that's another option. So either, whether or not you are facing a situation where you have negative results showing up in the search results or not, you should have control over the search results. And so if you can take advantage of that now, before anything negative potentially shows up, that's even better, because like I said, when it comes down to it, you don't necessarily want to hire someone like me and pay me a bunch of money to essentially clean up the results and give you consulting services around cleaning things up. It's a lot easier to get control now of the results before anything potentially happens. So this has been we're just about out of time. So this has been the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast for Thursday, April 7th, 2022. Thanks for joining me here on Facebook Live. I am on Facebook Live every Thursday afternoon at 1:30 Mountain Time. And that is Denver, Colorado time, Mountain Time. And these are recorded. This will be up on the YouTube channel, and the audio, like I mentioned before, as I do distribute the audio of this podcast every Thursday afternoon after it is recorded. So certainly get in touch with me with billhartzer.com. A lot of the social media channels, I am already out there on Facebook, Twitter, and so forth. And get in touch with me that way as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So thanks again for listening this afternoon, Thursday, April 7th, 2022 on the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast.